Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Kevin. And
And you sound like that.
I sound like crap, yeah. A little
I
bit of
didn't say crap, I said
laryngitis.
that.
Well, I sound like crap. Well, you can be honest here. Whether it's laryngitis or what's the word I'm looking for?
Strep.
No, because it's not infectious. But anyways,
Whatever.
I'm here. It's like this. Hopefully you can put up with it long enough to finish the episode.
Yeah. Just
Hopefully it
get
doesn't
through
bother you
it.
too much. I will mute myself for coughs, so hopefully hopefully I don't
Yeah.
miss one. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But we are here. It is, I'm going to say officially race week because
It's race week, yeah,
by
absolutely.
this time next week,
Well,
we would have had a race by now.
it's
So,
Monday. We're recording this on a Sunday. By the time you hear this, it's a Monday. We have media on Thursday,
yeah,
practices on Friday, and races on Sunday. With all within this
yeah.
week, it's race week.
It's
I'm so
race
excited.
week. Yeah. And Drive to Survive conveniently came out this past Friday. And I mean, that's a big part
Serendipitous,
of,
yeah.
yeah, it's a big part of our journey with Formula One. So obviously we had to binge it and neither of us finished it.
No,
but,
no.
but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what we've seen so far. I've seen I'm almost at the end. You are like
I'm almost done
two
in
more.
episode 8, so I
Yeah.
got 2 more after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just kind of just jumping right in, first thoughts of the
First
season so far.
thoughts. Now, for as much as I love the series, especially because it got us into this great sport and made us follow it so much closer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I loved about it when I first started watching this series was all the drama. Now and as far as you and I know, it's
Mm-hmm.
how much of that drama is manufactured. And we should have known this before. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Netflix, it's manufactured drama. But
Yeah.
the way they manufacture their storylines and how far it is away from the truth of it all,
Yeah.
or the chunks that are missing,
Yes.
I still love the series. It's still exciting. It's just it's especially this year, maybe it's such a misrepresentation
Of what happened.
of what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I think it wasn't this is season 7. So I think it was season 5 that was actually just bad.
Yeah.
But I do like this one better. I do agree. And we'll talk about some of those chopped together, mismatched pieces of what we've seen so far. But there have been a couple things that have come up that kind of brought me back to the first couple of seasons and been like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now I understand the reason to certain things, or now I understand why this happened during the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so far, is it my favorite season? No. There's stuff missing. There's stuff chopped together, like we said. But
Yeah. I mean, for me, my favorite season has to be what 2021 was. So I guess that's
yeah,
4 years ago. It's season 3 or something like that. Just because of the way 2021 was, and this
yeah,
season is probably up there.
yeah,
Especially like if I didn't follow every single storyline so closely,
yeah, yeah,
it would have been up there because this
yeah,
year or last year was just packed from February to December with
yeah,
stories.
yeah,
Um, and so all of that really comes out in the season. Like you forget how much actually happened in the season and how much they
yeah.
actually can't even put in the series.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, to be honest, I think they should do 24 episodes, one for each race. But, I mean, who am I? And they obviously don't have that much time or
Well,
maybe a
yeah, and
budget, but
I don't think it worked because when we get to like the Leclerc episode, that was so well done. And there's a
yes.
reason I have it actually saved what they talked about. One of the reasons why they did it in this format the way they do.
Yeah.
But that was a really great tribute to Leclerc and his story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, they do the drama well. They definitely do the storytelling well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I mean, we can kind of get into it. So, and we're not going to spoil it for anybody. We're just going to kind of talk through some of the stuff that happened. Um, I mean, it's hard to spoil it when there was a whole season already, and then,
What?
yeah. I guess one of the things in episode one, we kind of talk. We see Carlos Sainz and him going through episode one. I will say, first of all, didn't start how I predicted it would start. Kind of upsetting.
How did you
Um,
pick that one?
remember I said it's going to start with like the tweet noise, Lewis
Oh, not the tweet
to
noise. Yes, but it
yeah.
was all about. It started
It
with
started with
Lewis leaving.
Christian,
Yes.
but it started with Christian and Jerry uh, talking about
Yeah.
2023. But yeah, I mean, it does include all that. But then we go to Carlos, and when we know that Carlos, after the first race, had to have he had appendicitis,
Emergency appendectomy. Yeah.
and I think one thing that we didn't realize watching just the season and seeing what we see online is the act. But even before he went, the amount of pain he was
Yeah.
actually in when he came back. Like, yeah, we saw him walking stiff, but he's literally dressing his scar. Like, he is
Yeah.
in a
And he
lot of
is, and he
pain.
is pain, and it is like he's getting into his car, and he's just very gingerly, like you can tell,
Hmm.
just getting into that seat, which is not an easy seat on a regular day to get into.
Yeah.
He's there, and I'm sure there's, he's got that fear. It's a 2-hour race at high pressure, lots of G's, taking sharp turns. He's worried maybe something opens up inside of him, and there's some kind of
Yeah.
internal bleeding or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Like, it just made you think, okay, he really should not have been in that car.
no.
There,
And I think
there's
because
no way.
it makes him seem like, and yes, okay, great, he's doing it for the sport that he loves. I think he also felt the pressure that Lewis signed. He had Ollie Behrman come in, who did a
Yeah.
fantastic job at
Yeah.
P7, I think it was, in the Ferrari when he
Yeah.
finished.
Something like that. Yeah.
Um, did a great job, and he's feeling that pressure. Like, I have to perform, I have to show I can do what I got to do, and nobody would have
Yeah.
expected him to.
No.
But they
Like,
they glazed over that whole part of like his probably decision making of why I
yeah.
have to be here 2 weeks after a surgery.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he really said was, there's only so many seats, and I've got to perform. And it's like, yeah, well, I think you can be out for a couple of races, but I mean, I remember watching him come back in Australia, and then walking through the paddock, you're like, ooh, like he looks a little stiff, but
Yeah,
seeing the show, you're like, oh no, he is in a lot of
yeah,
pain still. um, so, I mean, there was no real mention of Ollie Bierman, like you said, taking over
nothing.
his seat.
Ollie Behrman,
Uh,
and maybe he does in episode 9 and 10, which I don't think he
yeah,
does,
no,
is not in it at all because he
no,
also drives for Haas this year.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
in place of Kevin Magnussen,
yeah,
and he signs. Obviously, we know that this year.
yeah,
As
yeah,
far as I know, there's not one mention of Ollie Behrman.
no,
So big
no.
omission.
Yeah, big piece missing. And then the Christian Horner stuff, I wouldn't say totally glazed over, but I think they
No,
were
they
selective in what they
absolutely.
include.
What?
But I think there was so much that was like,
There was a
he
lot.
said, she said, there was rumors of this, and then it wasn't that, and like there was a lot to put together at the time. So I think they were just like, hey, this happened.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
just gonna leave it there.
there was that. There was, Josh Verstappen talking about how he's creating turmoil in the team by not stepping down. There was all that drama. Um, you know,
Yeah.
uh, there was, which I thought they did a very good job of kind of selling this storyline. They showed the 5 principles uh, preseason, before the season started. Sorry, they had 5, which didn't include Christian and Zach. It was Toto, it was like Io, it was James, I believe, or whatever. The first 5 of them, and they asked them about if there's any distractions due to things that are in the media, and everybody just silent. Nobody said a word. Everybody kind
It
of
just
just
sat there.
in solidarity, like, we don't make a comment. It's not our business. We're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Then they go to
Yeah.
the next 5. later on in the episode, which includes Christian and Zach. And Zach is really quick to pick up that mic, and he says what he has to say
Yeah.
about it being a
Yeah.
distraction, and
Yeah.
basically give it. It's basically sportsmanship. It's not. It's a dirty trick,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's trying to take him off his mental game.
Yeah. And Christian's just sitting there like, but Christian knows, like, he's like, of course he's going to be the one to actually say something.
Yeah,
So,
and we see it.
um,
I told you. He calls him a prick on the way out, which Netflix
yes.
apparently had changed. He didn't actually call
Yeah.
him a prick. He called him a see you next Tuesday. But
Very,
which I
very
would have
British.
rather heard. I would have rather heard. They had one episode where everybody was literally saying "fuck" like
Yeah.
37 times in a row,
Yeah.
almost like they were trying to stick it to FIA. But
Yeah.
but they couldn't say the "see you next Tuesday." Like, yeah, you probably should have.
I wonder if they can. I mean, it's Netflix, so
It's a swear word. They can say whatever. They can do whatever the hell they want.
yeah, true, true. Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of it. I didn't. I thought the Lewis aspect of episode one was very underwhelming.
Oh, I found it interesting to watch the
The
awkwardness of
awkwardness.
all of it. Of all of it. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw the pictures. They're revealing the car and the BD after, and it all seemed very awkward, very awkward.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's looked like George. It just there's a few episodes where they're dealing with the Lewis stuff, and George is just
Yeah.
kind of like he feels very uncomfortable in this leadership role. Like he wants to
Yeah.
take it, but he doesn't know how to take it, and it's just
Well, and I think when I was because it was and still is to this day such big news, I was half expecting it to be the majority of the episode and kind of more
yeah.
talking to Lewis more and being like, what was the decision? What was the deciding factor? Like, that's what I was looking for in this episode. And it was like, hey, he signed, he's moving. Toto goes and awkwardly hugs him. Then they go and
Yeah,
do
that
the
when he
car
walks in, he
launch.
goes, I want a hug, and it's like Lewis is just like, all right, we've never hugged in 12 years, but
Yeah. Yeah. There's the awkward moment at the car launch. Um, yeah, there's an awkward moment at the car launch where Toto says, "Oh, we put a little bit more red on the car," and then Lewis basically says, "I
I don't
hate
like
the car,"
yeah, I don't
and
like it. It looks like two separate cars. Yeah.
that you put together, and I was like, "Wow!" And he's on his phone right before, like it was.
There's a few things because you see in other episodes just like him just not happy being there still for this whole year.
No, no,
And
and
which sorry, go on.
yeah,
No, go on.
no, I was just saying, it was interesting to see Fred kind of talk about the decision to do it at the beginning of the year.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Why now?
but I also like he says, we do it now and get it out of the way and put it behind us. In what world did you think that was going to be put behind you?
Oh,
Like,
I think it was all for the gamesmanship. I think he
yeah,
had to have that in the back of
yeah,
his head. His teammates to have that in the back of his head. The rest of the like maybe it makes Mercedes falter a little bit.
yeah.
You know,
Which,
but
yeah, I don't
kind of.
know. Kind of.
Yeah.
Episode two, this is more like a McLaren episode.
This is
And
the I think they called it frenemies. This was the Max Lando
yes,
one.
yeah, yeah. So, but it is a lot more about Lando
Yeah,
or
but
yeah, because they know how much
Mercedes.
Max wants to be a part of this.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just thought hilarious editing of them, like Lando saying, like, I'm not really a party boy, and then like going to all the clips of him partying.
Yeah.
On like it just like split screening.
Would you call yourself part about party
Yeah. Yeah.
party video?
Video of
Just,
like, I thought it was pretty good. I did like that they actually showed the friendship of them, of
yeah.
Lando and Max. Going to play paddle. It's just funny moments in that episode. I think what they've tried to is keep the episodes a little bit more light than they have in the past years. And I think it's because of Max being like,
I don't
you guys are messing this up.
Yeah, I don't think they want him to be like, you're just doing it all for the drama. I'm never gonna be back on here. I mean, he
Yeah.
is probably the second most probably in that this season, the third most marketable person behind Daniel and Lewis.
Yeah.
Um but they still didn't they kind of they did a lot of that, especially after I forget which race it was. The one where they crash, they come together. Anyways, did they?
Budapest.
Yeah,
No.
did he apologize to you? No. And, going back and forth and showing them in the not the paddock, the press area, right beside each other, not even looking at
Yeah.
each other. We don't
Yeah.
know how it happened after, but it was an awkward moment.
Yeah. Which, and then, Lando saying in his car, I expected a text from him
Yeah,
on like the Monday morning.
to
And
say
it's
sorry.
like,
I'm like, why would you expect Max to say sorry?
yeah, yeah, not sure.
Maybe glaze
Um,
over and be like, "Are we playing paddle today?" And
right.
yeah,
Um, Also funny, uh, Zach having that like hot mic moment of like, I hope Max slips on a banana peel and then
and then
immediately
falls.
tripping.
Yeah,
Like,
almost eat shit.
yeah,
It's just,
yeah. It's just, and then I mean, we see Miami in that episode, and that's Lando's first win, and this is where we see the first bit of manipulating of the season of how things happen. So they're in the cool down room, and I am going to spoil this, but they're
which
in the
Max has
cool.
already commented on anyway. So
Yeah, so they are in the cool down room, and they're showing Lando, and they're showing this like depressed, defeated,
angry.
miserable looking
Yeah.
Max in the corner by himself, whatever, very miserable. And then they go back to Lando, like all happy over with his friends, and making it look like Max was really pissed, and not that he wasn't happy for him, which he was happy that his friend won.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, pictures and comments about saying like, I think Lando at one point said, "I wish I won in Silverstone," and Max was like, "It's better to party. It's better to win here and party
Yeah.
here." So, but about the cool down room, Max is wearing a blue hat. And that is not the Miami Grand Prix.
No.
That is Zandvoort. So when he's looking sad and miserable, which they're clipping together beside Lando, who just won, it's not true.
It was another day he was sad and
It was
miserable.
another day. It was sad and miserable.
Well,
But
yeah, especially after
they pull it together to make it look
yeah,
like it.
they make that dramatic
Yeah.
insinuation to hype not hype up, but I guess emphasize the extent of their rivalry this
Yeah.
year, I guess maybe. Because yeah, after Max had already commented, he said, "I don't know what I was upset about in Miami because I had a great time Sunday night," which
Yeah.
means he went out and partied.
He partied with Lando.
Yeah, like you could have picked any other time. There were other times, and in Miami, Lando got, and he says it in the episode. I got lucky on that win. He
Yeah.
got the safety car, and he got lucky.
Yeah. Which
It
is funny
wasn't.
because later in the season, like the actual racing season last year, there was this big talk about luck. And, you can't be lucky. Absolutely, you get
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah,
Their luck, strategy, driving, all that factors in, but luck is a very big thing, and
yeah.
Lando admitted it. Like,
And sometimes you got to be lucky. It's not a
yeah,
comment on your talent.
no,
Sometimes you've got to get lucky.
no. I mean, look, we've had situations that are unlucky for some, but lucky for others. We have,
Oh,
Lance Stroll starting P3 in some
how many
scenarios.
times have we
Like,
had? How many times have we had like you bake a safety car into your strategy because
yeah,
that track has 100% or a 90% safety car probability because it always
yeah.
has, and then all of a sudden you get
And then
unlucky and
there's
it doesn't.
no
There was
safety
nothing
car. Yeah.
that actually happened last year, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was last year.
So, yeah, so it's like you never know, but it was nice to actually see Lando admit it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that was kind of it. Then we had episode 3, which was kind of about Mercedes, I think, right? And
really focus. Yeah,
George.
it focuses on Lewis leaving, what his decision was, and more so George taking the lead, and
Yeah.
the signing of whoever they thought was going to be who they wanted for their next driver. Which,
Yeah.
spoiler, it's Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just kind of like the back and forth of like, wanting Carlos. Maybe it's not good, or, is George at the level of wanting to do this? Also, love the part where Toto's sitting down with Susie, and they're kind of talking about options. And Toto's like, Fernando, and she's like, ooh. Like her
Yeah,
face is just like, Not sure.
Yeah.
And then she kind of corrects and says, but that's not a long term solution,
Yeah.
which it wouldn't be. It's not.
And we also get the reveal where, Toto says, what about Max? He says, yeah, of course Max is an option. I promised Lewis that I wouldn't sign Max, but
Yeah.
Lewis isn't here anymore. Well,
Yeah.
and for anybody that's new to the sport, for a number one driver, especially of that caliber, to veto another driver is not unheard of.
No,
And there's
not at
no
all.
way Lewis wants Max as
At
his teammate.
that level, yeah, no,
No.
at that level. I did think it was a little funny when it kind of comes out that it is Kimmy that has been selected. I can't speak today. George compares Kimmy coming to him
Yes,
as
I got that
him
same
going
thing.
to
Yeah.
George. I was like, this
It's
is
like
not
maybe
the
I can
same.
take him under like Lewis was to me. I'm like, you are not Lewis Hamilton.
No, Lewis was a 7-time world
Yeah.
champion when you came over.
Why?
He
Yeah.
won 3 races.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I
You are
just thought it
not on the
was
same.
like confidence. We love a confident man.
See, but
But
to me, it feels like it's just like manufactured confidence. I don't find him that confident.
no.
I kind of feel like this is what I have to say. I'm just going to manifest this and put it into a PowerPoint.
Yeah. I think it was just funny. Like when
Yeah.
he was like
Oh, I picked up on
comparing.
that right away.
I
And
don't know
then they
about
have what they glazed over too is the interviews with Toto or
that.
things saying it's always been Kimmy. It's always been Kimmy because the whole
Yeah.
episode is about who are we
Yeah.
going to sign. It was never.
Yeah.
It's always Kimmy.
It was
I mean,
always
he's on your radar, but there was
yeah.
obviously Alonso. There's
It
Max.
was
There's
signs.
Carlos. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah. And I mean, he says at the end, like, it was a no brainer. And, George winning whatever race that was, I can't remember, kind of opened his eyes that he could lead the team. And I was like, I don't know. As George, how would that make you feel? It's like, oh, you won a race? Cool. Yeah, I think you can lead the team. Like, I don't
yeah,
know. I don't, but again, the splicing of all of this and what we hear in the show, some of it you have to take with like
grain of salt.
grain of salt. Like,
Butter.
yeah, because we also hear a lot of these interviews during the actual season as well. So it's interesting. And I think one thing that we should also mention is with Drive to Survive, the Drive to Survive team, Netflix, they do a lot of these interviews after some of these races. So that's why I don't know if any of you caught it or if
Yeah,
anybody else is listening that caught it. You see sometimes Lando's cut on his nose is there, and then
yeah.
it's
And
not,
sometimes it's not. Yeah,
and it's
they go back.
and
They
then it's
revisit it
not.
a little bit.
Yeah, so some of this stuff, could have been said before when they're sitting there talking. Could have been filmed way after, could have been filmed before, and they're just putting it all together. But some of the stuff is kind of like, okay, well, that's not what you said at the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah,
But like you said with Toto saying it was always Kimmy. But then we have episode 4, which is Carlos Sainz, Signs.
yeah.
So this is really just all about him. And this is the episode that I thought brought me back to first few seasons of Formula One, of Drive to Survive, sorry. Because we all know I was not happy about Carlos going to Williams. But seeing actually all the behind the scenes of it was really interesting. And like, we've seen him talk about, I'm here to help the team move forward. And I was like, oh, humble brag. But he really does bring that experience. And when you're looking at it during the season, you're like, no, you don't want him to go there. That's the team that's not doing so well. But they have actually been doing
They've been
increasingly
yeah.
well. Like, so watching that episode actually made the decision make a little bit more sense to me. Because again, you're seeing all the behind the scenes of it.
And we went back and forth with it throughout the year. I mean, spoiler alert. When you watch episode 8, it seems like Red Bull's decision was always going to be, if Checo falters, it's going to be Daniel or Liam or Yuki. It's between those 3. Carlos was maybe a shot in the dark, but it didn't seem like a realistic shot.
Yeah.
Or something they could seriously consider. Didn't look like Mercedes was seriously considering it either. It was just they were probably kicking tires on it.
Yeah.
And so we get to it's mostly going to be Alpine, Williams, or Sauber,
Yeah.
right?
And I mean, I think it's funny, um, or not funny, but I do think watching it, I thought when he talks so much about being there to help with development and push them forward and move them up and all of that, and it kind of made me think I would love to see if there is somewhere in that contract where he has a little bit of stake in, pun intended, a stake in how Williams is going to run, because they James talks about, how much they really like they would want his mind, and they wanted a race winner, multiple race winner, and um, it's like it's not like the Fernando Alonso contract
Yeah.
with Aston Martin, but I almost want to think that there is something in there that he gets rights to decision making or something, or he's the number one,
Well,
because he was about to sign and then he didn't, and then he
and
didn't
I
end up
completely
signing.
forgot about that because I remember seeing the reports that there was
Yeah,
a potential signing, and then it just didn't happen at a hotel.
yeah,
And so we
yeah.
see, and they asked him, like, and the best part about most of the episodes is that when they show Flavio Viatori, it comes with a Star Wars Darth Vader esque music.
Yeah.
So Carlos is supposed to sign with Williams, or he's got the contract ready to go, and then he doesn't show up. He doesn't call
Yeah.
anybody. They don't hear from him,
Yeah.
and he admits he's like, because Flavio called, and Carlos has a relationship with Flavio. His father
Hmm.
has a relationship with Flavio Briatore.
Yeah.
Um, so he said that there's an option there, and so he wasn't going to bother going. And
Yeah.
James does everything in his power, calls his cousin and says, what do we need to do?
What do we
What else
do?
can we do? What else are they giving you that we can either match or exceed or whatever?
Yeah.
So you could be right, because it looked like he was ready to throw it all on the line for
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yeah. So I feel like like I said, they've given him the money for sure, but there's got to be some sort of, he's number one. He's going to get the calls made for him. Whatever it is, I think there's something else in there.
Yeah.
Um, this is the first episode we really see Flavio Briatore, and I just need to say, everybody except for Will Buxton did not stand on business, because during the season it was like, oh, this controversial person coming back to Formula One, whatever. Everybody in the episode's like, oh, he's fantastic, he's great, we love him, nice to see him back in the paddock. And it's like, this is the man that, you know
Well,
potentially rigged
they may like
races.
him, may not like the way he runs things, but they could. I
True.
mean, he seems like he would just be a fun guy.
Yeah.
Seems like a complete asshole, and he doesn't mince anything about that. It's like, this is
No,
business. I'll do it. I'm an
he's
asshole. He'll call
he's
himself an asshole.
he owns it. He
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely. You
owns
got to
it.
respect that a little bit.
I do respect that a little bit,
Don't
but
respect the cheating, but I respect
yeah,
the honesty.
yeah. But Will Buxton was the one that was like, well, I mean, he's kind of controversial. Like, he's fun and
I
all
mean,
that, but
Will Buxton had a free pass to say whatever he wanted this year. He knew he
yeah,
was going to
true.
IndyCar, so
Very true. Very true. Um, episode 5, we have Le Curse of Leclerc, which is an awful
which
name.
makes it sound like it's going to be an absolutely horrible episode, and it wasn't. It was
Yeah,
very.
yeah.
I mean,
It
they
was
focused
it
a
was a
lot on his
great episode.
blunders. They
Yeah,
focused, they focused a
and
lot
and
on
they
how
made
bad it's gone for him.
they made everybody talk about it. They even bring in Bottas and they're like, interview him for all of one sentence, and they're
Yeah,
like, yeah, he's had bad luck there. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
thanks for the input to the season.
And then they,
Um,
they go on this thing, like, because he obviously gets pole in Monaco, and they go on like the driver parade, and they talk about how like it's all a mind game in F1, and you're always trying to get your competitor off. And you see Bottas and Lewis saying, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to try and slow us down, this and that. And
yeah.
it didn't matter to them. They were 17th and 18th.
Yeah.
There was
They
no
were like,
gamesmanship there at
doesn't
all.
matter what we're doing. We're back. We're at the back.
Like,
But yeah, it was a really good episode.
focus on how he got where he is. His father,
Yeah,
relationship with his father,
yeah.
him being a dirty
Bianca,
liar to his father.
Bianca, who's Kevin's, well, I wouldn't say husband, Kevin's wife, bawling her eyes out at this
Oh yeah.
episode.
Oh yeah.
Like, she's just texting me, like, I can't stop
I can't
crying.
stop crying.
Yeah. But,
Oh no, he
um,
lied to his father. You can't
yeah.
do that.
I think it was a good lie, but I mean, it worked out too. So
Well, thank
it's,
God.
it's a good lie. But yeah, it was about his family and all that. And it was a good episode in the end. And I think
Yeah.
it was a good storytelling episode.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they need to kind of get more into is these like,
I don't think you need them all, but like it
no,
breaks up that whole drama and the excitement and just focuses on one person and their story, and especially if it's a
yeah,
good story, right?
yeah,
I think it was really well done and probably the best one I've seen so far.
yeah, yeah. I would say so. Um, because we've got a lot of McLaren, which I mean, it was McLaren season, but
There's a
then
lot about that.
episode 6 is McLaren, and
That is
we go to
McLaren.
that Hungary driver swapping scenario, which I was watching it and it pissed me off again watching it. I was so angry, just watching
Yeah.
that episode of them being like, Lando, come on, just give it back. Like, you've
Just
proved your
pleading with him.
point. Yeah,
Please, please,
you've
Lando. Don't
proved
do
your
it, Lando.
point.
Please, Lando.
Yeah, just yeah. And I did think interesting that, and again, don't know when this it was filmed, the interviews, but Zach doubling down on it was Oscar's race to win. No, it's the person that is in front. It was Oscar's race that you made him lose by
Well,
pitting the wrong
yeah,
person.
exactly. They fucked up.
Yeah.
And they
So I
said like,
mean,
and they kept going. We have two number ones. We have two number ones.
yeah,
Nobody ever agrees that you can't have two number ones. It's impossible. Only one person can stand on that podium.
yeah.
You don't have two number ones.
And what I thought was interesting too with that is that they actually, and it was smart of Netflix to do this, was go and ask the different team principals, do you think they should separate a 1 and 2? They all said yes.
Yeah,
And which means they do it at their teams. Because, I mean, the question was,
you
do you
have
think
to.
McLaren should have outlined a number 1 and number 2?
Yeah,
Yeah, they all do it. And
absolutely.
yes, you might have a great race, but you know what? You probably have to move over today. You like
Yeah,
it for the number 1, and the whole thing just really pissed me off again. We knew it was going to come, and we're going to have to see it again. But yeah, I mean, they and I'm we do see the conversation that they say for the final. I think it's Singapore. That they say, you know what, they have the conversation of
yeah.
we're going to make calls for Lando and
Because at that
Oscar.
point, he had the best. I mean, Oscar wasn't mathematically. We talked about this last year
Yeah,
too. Oscar
yeah,
wasn't mathematically out, but Lando was mathematically better.
yeah. And
Still like 40 points out or something.
but
But
even when he was like, okay, but even Oscar was kind of like, I don't know, like you could see like the wheels turning, and right after, no, it was Monza, because right after that, um, Lando ended up qualifying 15th.
hmm,
So it was, and Oscar was like P2, and then Lando was
yeah,
like P15. But you see the clips of them, mostly Red Bull, going and talking to Red Bull, or eavesdropping on Christian, saying Max would never
no,
do that.
Max wouldn't have moved over. And you see, like
Max
right
would have turned off
after,
the radio.
you see right after whatever, yeah, that race. The next day, you hear Lando's like, it really bothered me at the time, but now
Hmm.
looking in hindsight, it was the right decision. I'm like, you're saying that because Netflix is in your home.
Yeah,
There's no way that you think that this was the right decision.
yeah. There's
You filthy liar.
consider, and they did play it. I was wondering if they were going to, considering Oscar couldn't reach him and Lando had to brake. That's the
Yeah.
part that gets me as well, right? Is it wasn't like Oscar was right on him and it was like, stop blocking him, just let him go past you.
No, he was a
It
whole like
was,
6 or 9 seconds ahead.
yeah,
And he says, let him catch up. And he says, well,
let him
no,
catch up.
tell him to catch up.
Yeah. So that would be if I have to put on the brakes, then no, you don't deserve the win. And you
Yeah,
guys are messing with the 1-2. Like,
yeah. He's not. It wasn't like he was keeping a gap. He was gaining time.
yeah.
You know,
So
he's obviously quicker. Just let him go. You fucked
just
up. You
let him
tell
go.
Oscar, sorry, it's our fault. I'm not going to
Yeah.
give you a place back 6 seconds out.
Yeah, we'll get you the next
Yeah,
one.
we'll get
Which
you in the next one.
I mean, then we hear, Lando saying it was underwhelming for Oscar and it made him feel like shit, really. Which is
Yeah,
true. Like you
and
cuz
then
I no, go
every
ahead.
scene that they chose to show after that was Oscar having a interview and Lando just glaring at him.
In
Like,
the
come on.
back. Yeah. And it probably wasn't even that race. It
No,
was
no.
like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
them. And Lando's probably looking at somebody else, but they're like, this looks like he's looking at
yeah.
Oscar. So we're going to use this one. Um, and then we have episode 7, which is a kind of a cool concept episode where they give. It's like Netflix didn't actually go to the race, which was Singapore.
Yeah, it's almost
Um,
like they didn't want to deal with the heat, so they said, "You
yeah.
guys do it."
Yeah, they gave George, Lando, Pierre, Alex, Charles. Am I missing somebody? Just
Yes, it
those
was
5.
Charles. Yeah, it was Charles.
They gave those 5 like cell phones basically,
They asked him to just film it on a cell phone, on an iPhone.
and it was like a POV of them and like them waking up in the bed and
What
having
they're doing, yeah.
breakfast.
Charles playing piano,
Yeah,
like this guy doesn't do fucking enough.
yeah, and yeah, just kind of filmed the weekend through their eyes and what they do. And the 5 of them are friends from karting, so it's about their relationships as well. And
Yeah.
you see them after free practice going to play paddle, and you see them going to have dinner together after qualifying. And so it's kind of
Um,
like a humanizing episode of
yeah.
them.
And a lot of it
But
too is just to do with because this is technically Albon's home race because it's
yeah,
closest to Thailand.
yeah.
Um, even though he is also English, so Silverstone would still be a home race, but whatever. Um,
Like Oscar just picking up all these home
no,
races.
his father is English and his uncle's
Yeah,
English. I mean,
yeah,
he's English, half English, but
yeah,
either way, it was about that. And then they do a kind of like I don't want to say sob piece on it, but he talks about the relationship and how going up in karting, he was kind of the big dog in karting, and now he's at
yeah,
Williams and he hasn't won anything, and he just wants to be there with all his friends.
yeah,
It's like they
yeah,
forgot about him, and he's just lowly in Williams, which kind of
yeah,
feel bad for,
yeah. And that's something
especially
that's
because who was it? Was it Pierre? Or was it Lando that said when he went out to karting, it's Albon that got him into karting,
yeah,
watching him race.
yeah. Which is weird because they're all like the same age, so it's like, how did that? Okay, anyways, but yeah, it was an interesting episode, and then it kind of ends. I mean, Singapore we know is the hottest race, the most difficult mentally, physically on the
Yeah,
drivers. Um, and they spend a lot of time kind of focusing on George and George talking about the heat and how difficult this race is.
yeah.
And
And particularly last year, it was 90% humidity. It
yeah,
was 37 degrees at night on track.
yeah,
And I think the cockpits got to close like 45,
yeah,
46. And like coming from a health and safety perspective, we don't even let our workers work in that. Like
yeah,
at 42 with the Humidex, you're out of work. Like we
yeah.
shut it down. And we have work rest periods. We don't put you behind an engine for 2 hours straight.
Yeah, the engine just warming your back
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
more. I think that was the race that they didn't talk about it in the show, but that's the race that Charles' water stopped working as well. Wasn't that the one?
No, I don't think it was that one.
I
Was
mean,
it
he would
that
have
one?
passed out, but
I
anyways,
think so. I think it was another one, but it was another hot race too. Was it?
yeah.
Could have been that one.
And then
Either way,
he went through the race without it.
that race
Um,
sucked for everybody. So
yeah, and I mean, it was a. Uh, I mean, I guess they're following reality. Um, and we see just how bad at the end with George really having a panic attack after the race is done. He's
well,
got his podium, and
he was probably like seconds from like heat stroke. He had heat
yeah,
exhaustion.
yeah,
His heart rate was up. His skin was on fire. It was all
Yeah.
tingling. Like he
He
couldn't
was just
sweat
not
anymore.
well. Yeah.
No, he was in the ice bath and he was just panicking.
Yeah, and I mean it's controversial again from a health and safety perspective. And just kind of flipping to a little bit of news here, we've already heard that
Well, we'll get into that in the news.
Mm, oh, okay.
I have that ready to go because it's part of the
Oh,
new rules. Yeah.
okay.
Shh. Okay.
Well then, yeah. All right. Um, yeah. So I mean, there's that, and
Can't spoil our own
um,
show.
right, right. So then we have episode 8, which I just started, and Kevin.
You just started. I've watched most of it. I think I got like 10 minutes left. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's called Elbows Out. It's focusing on, Checo's failings, race
Demise.
to race. Yeah, just kind of not really meeting a bar there. Things going wrong. Like he needs to make points and he's crashing or not finishing or he's not qualifying. Whatever. We hear that whole, Christian saying if Checo doesn't make it, we've got, it's going to be between Daniel and Liam and Yuki and who they got. And he admits it. He's always pulling for Daniel, right? He wants Daniel. He
Yeah.
thinks he's still got it. And then they focus a lot on Silverstone, where, as we saw in Silverstone, they started off fine, expected rain. They did get quite a bit of heavy rain, which a lot of people were going slower. That's actually the race where Max lapped Checo twice. Not great on Checo. But then you see Daniel where they focus on a lot, and he just wasn't fast enough. He wasn't gaining any time. Yuki, he finished 15th. I think Yuki finished like 12th or 13th or something like that, somewhere around those. Anyways, but he just wasn't. He didn't feel comfortable, and
Yeah.
he has one of those isolated interviews. And now again, I don't know if it was at the end of the season or shortly after that race, where he says like, and he didn't want to say it. He really didn't want to admit to it, but the thoughts kept going through his head like, one mistake and I'm done. Not just the car's done and my dreams are done, but like I
Yeah.
could be really hurt. And he's like, is
Yeah.
this really worth it? He says
Yeah.
that. And so like that doubt creeping into his head of a racing driver, because anybody else, Max isn't thinking
No.
that. Anybody else who's a racing driver and has no worries, you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about making that podium, making those points.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, to me, I mean, I think that was just his mindset is his nailing the coffin why he didn't go to Red Bull and his performance as well.
Yeah.
But that to me shows me that I don't think he's coming to Cadillac amidst all the rumors. I
No.
it, I just don't think he has it anymore
No, I think
mentally. I
he's
don't think
done. I think he's done. I did see there was an interview. It wasn't even an interview. There was somebody caught him, like he was doing press for something, and
so
somebody,
Enchante Rose.
no, but I want to try it. So Daniel, if you're listening, send it. But if he was he's doing press and somebody was recording and just like, Daniel, we're going to see you in Cadillac. And he was like, no, I'm done. So is he
Yeah.
already shutting it down? Is he just saying that? Is Cadillac actually interested?
I don't know if they're interested. I think he's an
Yeah.
option. He's also a marketable option.
Yeah.
But best part about best marketing for an F1 team is to win. So I don't think he's the
Yeah.
best option to win.
Right. Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah.
for the amount of options that are out there, and I don't even know how many really great options there are. But anyways, we won't talk about that.
No.
We've got lots of time to talk about that getting on in the season.
Yeah.
But that's what we've watched of Drive to Survive. And I know
Yeah.
like the last two episodes, episode 9 is called Under New Management, which is obviously about Alpine. So we're gonna see a
Yeah.
lot of Flavio there. Um,
Yeah.
and then probably no mention of Alpine signing Duhan and Colapinto.
Right.
Well, we're not gonna see Colapinto this season, I don't think.
No, we're not.
Um, and then the
And
other
when
one is
and oh, go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say the last one is Endgame, which is I'm assuming just the final push for constructors championship.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi, pretty much
Yeah,
coming
pretty
down
much.
to
Yeah.
it. When we're both kind of done, we'll probably post on Instagram or our socials just a little what we thought was missing, our final thoughts about it. But yeah, I mean, so far so good. Not the greatest season. A couple of episodes have been good, but
No,
I think
it's
it's
good because the
because
season was good.
yeah, yeah, and I think some of the stuff we now, 7 seasons in and us actually watching the season through and through, we're seeing the drama, the
The
manufactured drama
creative,
side.
the creative
The
decisions that they
creative.
take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to call it. The creative side. So, um, but yeah, so we've got a little bit of news, not much,
Not much.
but
You know what? We had a couple other things. All I'm really going to talk about there are some new rules that are coming in 2025 for anybody.
hmm
We'll just go over some of those and what that might mean for the season.
yeah.
But otherwise, we don't really have to go through all the other crap. It's race week. Who cares? So,
Yeah.
anyways, getting into the actual meat of the races here. There is no more fastest lap point. That has
Yes.
been abolished. It's gone. So now you can't try and screw your competitors by trying to get the extra point here for going for
Yeah.
fastest lap, or taking away one. Because as we saw a lot of the times, somebody might just because they're in 17th or whatever, and they want their parent team to stay ahead by 1 point. They're going to put a fast tire on possibly a Visa Cash App RB,
Hmm.
and go for that fastest lap to
That
take
seems
away.
very specific.
Because we know that before, if you had finished below the points and got the fastest lap, you actually just didn't get the point. So nobody got the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is no more fastest lap. That's gone, completely gone. Um,
I'm sure they're
mandatory.
still going to show us the timing. Like they're still going to have the purple little thing saying,
Yeah,
"Hey,
they'll
this,
still they'll say who
Lando's
got it,
going
but there's just going to be
fastest."
no
Yeah.
point for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do this one last actually. There's going to be stricter limits on testing old cars. So as we know, like a lot of times you can test old cars to see what works, what doesn't work. They're going to just kind of clamp down on that. So there's less data coming out. So you just have to kind of work on your own car.
Yeah.
Increased rookie practice sessions, which is good because we've got a lot of them. It's gonna be good for the rookies. It's gonna be good for
Yeah.
everybody else on track. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit safer out there. Stricter DRS and wing rules. So again, we had a lot of the mini DRSs, which is already a problem.
Yeah.
So they're clamping down on the rear wing DRS from race one. However, the FIA is only going to clamp down on the front wing flexing and wing rules by Spain, race 9, which makes absolutely no sense. I don't know why you would have to manufacture two wings, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's the way they're going with it. So there's
Hmm.
going to be stricter guidelines on that, which we've already seen a lot of fuckery with all of these already. Yeah, it's been ridiculous. Apparently now Mercedes' whole rear wing just drops when you're in high speed. Like it doesn't
Oh.
open up. It just the whole thing just drops, so there's less drag.
Oh.
It's like
Hmm.
probably like a quarter inch, but like
Hmm.
there's so much pressure
Interesting.
it pushes it down. But anyways,
Interesting.
yeah. Adjustments to qualifying classification, which I have no idea what that means, but there will be adjustments to the qualifying classification. There is no explanation here, but those are rule changes here. Um, they'll use mule cars for tire testing, so you won't have to put out your own car. And then the
Perfect.
last one, and the one we're going to talk about because we were going to talk about before, is mandatory cooling systems. So
Yeah.
what Sabrina was going to say is that they've
Yeah.
implemented mandatory cooling systems, especially because of, which is ridiculous. It took Singapore, but the year before, was it Qatar?
Qatar.
They still had quite a bit of heat exhaustion. We saw Fernando Alonso not even be able to get out of his seat, or was it
Yeah.
Russell again?
They all really struggled to get
I think
out.
it was also
But
like somebody's got to check Russell's diet, but
yeah.
um,
Tall and
but yeah.
lanky.
So they were introducing special cooling undershirts that have been
hmm
used in like I believe it's MotoGP and a couple other racing series,
Yeah.
where it's basically like there's a cooling system threaded into the
Into
material.
the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, they've started to implement that in testing. Has not gone well.
No.
Specifically, Ocon has made other drivers have made it, but Ocon has been probably the most vocal about it, saying
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable, especially with the belts on them.
Yeah.
You don't really get that. Like it's really uncomfortable on your chest and on your back. So they don't seem to be working out when you're in
No.
such a confined seat. Maybe if you're on
No.
a motorcycle or something a little bit looser, but these things are tight. They're completely fit to your form. And then you
Yeah.
add on a cooling system.
I saw something, I think it was Ocon or Albon, one of them said that like at certain angles, your seatbelt doesn't even fit properly.
Yeah.
So it's like, um, that's now health and safety again. Like So, I mean, at least they're trying to help them. But again, so many seasons too late. And we can't implement something that's not working and is going to possibly make it more uncomfortable for these drivers. So,
Well, I mean, luckily, we got Australia, then we go to
China.
Baku and China and Japan, right?
Yeah.
They've got a few races to probably figure this out,
Yeah.
unless we have some weird extreme heat days in these
Yeah.
countries. But
Yeah.
we've got some time to figure that out. So hopefully they find something from now until then.
Yeah. Because I mean, even, uh, okay, Miami is not the same heat as Singapore or Qatar.
Qatar, yeah,
But I mean, Miami is one where you do see the drivers wearing the ice pack before
yeah.
they get into the car. So it Miami has high humidity as well. It's not necessarily the same, like I said, but
But there's potential for it. I mean, you could have
yeah,
just an extreme heat day.
yeah. So anything's possible, really. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they figure it out and figure out some way because in a scenario where someone's cooling system or water system breaks, at least this would continue to keep them
Keep your
cool.
core body temperature
Yeah.
down. Yeah, of course.
So you can get out of the car by yourself at the end of
Yeah.
the race. So,
Because there's only
yeah.
so many more seasons George can take this.
Yeah, honestly.
Um,
Poor guy. Poor
so
guy.
two other things, just quick, because we'll keep this under an hour. But we do have the confirmation finally of an 11th team starting from
Mm-hmm.
2026. Cadillac GMC, not Cadillac GMC. Is it Cadillac GMC?
I think it's just Cadillac F1, but GMC is going to be
Yes, it's
there.
General Motors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Cadillac General Motors is going to be the 11th team. So we will have 22 cars on track from 2026 onwards until whatever, which is not the first time they've had 22 teams, but
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have another one. So we'll have two more faces on an F1 grid.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And
And
I did see the two. There's only been two drivers to follow Cadillac, and it was Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher, who said he was really stepping away. So, but whatever. We'll see what his involvement might
for
be.
another
But
year, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And just something less. Adrian Newey has finally started at Aston Martin,
yeah, less.
presumably working on the 2026 car.
Yeah, they're like,
His gardening leave is over. His $20 million kicks in.
yeah,
His
God,
wife had a very funny post where she said, good luck. I'll see you in 5 years because
yeah,
he'll be so busy um,
pretty
under
much.
Lawrence's whip. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he started last week, I guess, sometime last
Monday,
week.
it was Monday
Yeah.
last week. Yeah, it was his first day.
So yeah, I would assume he's gone direct to. Not that I don't
2026.
think he's going to help the
He
2025
will. I
car,
think he's going
but
to.
he's just like focus is
I think you're going to get 3.
2026.
I think you're going to get 3 races in. They're going to fail so poorly, and Lawrence is going to be like, just just tell me what you see.
Tell us what to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Just
which is
what
interesting
can we
because
fix?
we've also there's also the anybody who's won a championship. This stat came out with Newey. The season after they leave Newey, they have never won a championship ever again, ever. So there's been Nigel Mansell. I mean, Senna doesn't count; he died. But there's been Ayrton Senna. There's been a few where they've left. I believe was it Alonso? I can't remember. There's been a few. They leave
Like Newey's left.
Adrian Newey team. No, or they leave a Newey.
Mm.
They're no longer working with Newey, and they've never won ever again. So it'd be interesting to see with Max. Although Max is also now signed with Aston Martin to put out a racing team in another series
Ah, well,
using an Aston Martin car. So
that's interesting.
fuel the rumors, if you
Yeah,
may.
honestly, yeah. I mean, well, that won't be good for my predictions because I still had Max winning this year. So hopefully that's
Be good for me.
that la curse is broken.
La curse.
Hopefully, yeah. But yeah,
But
that's
that's
all
it.
our news. That's
Yeah.
all our news for this
Yeah.
week. All right. Well, then we will be back next week with a race review. which is
Yes.
exciting.
Finally. Although the
Yeah,
race is at like 1 a.m.
I think it's 12. I think
Was it
qualifying's
midnight? It's
at
not bad.
yeah, I think the qualifying's at 1, but the race I think is at 12. You know, not bad until we go
So
to
we'll be
China.
recording at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Right on.
right after.
But yeah, in the meantime, you can, as always, follow us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, and X
X.
at Fresh Set Podcast. And then we are also on Spotify, YouTube,
YouTube.
Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts at Fresh Set Podcast. Like, subscribe, follow, turn on auto downloads, and listen to us whenever you can and all the time.
Yep. Excited for our set.
Bye.